Welcome to the Voice of Supply Chain. I am Katherine, your host for today. This is brought to you by ISM New Jersey. And as you can see, we're getting festive. I'd like to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. We are all celebrating today because our guest is incredible. I've gotten to know him through the process over the last few weeks, and I'm very confident that this will not be the last time we collaborate or do an interview together. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome David Johnson to the show. He, you're not
Good
going to
afternoon,
believe it.
everybody.
Yeah. Welcome, David. I have a lot to go through on your accolades here. He's Senior Director of Global Sourcing for News Corp. He leads the charge in negotiating contracts, transforming tech sourcing strategies. But we're going to talk about David's story. It goes far beyond just his career accomplishments. His life has been an incredible journey of resilience, creativity. I can't wait for you to hear about his creative ventures and an unwavering drive to succeed. So yes, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I need to hire you to
Uh,
come and introduce me at events and speaking events. I felt like
yeah, I could be your hype gal.
my hype person. Exactly. Hear ye,
Yeah.
hear ye. Welcome, David Johnson.
And David was just telling me before we got on, he's been involved with ISM in some form or another for at least 10 years. And I think that's an incredible thing to note that just about everybody that comes on this show is very well involved with ISM. And David just did an event. Was it this week or last week?
Last week, Thursday, right, Kathy? I think it was last Thursday. We did an event with in conjunction with both Rutgers and Johnson at the Johnson & Johnson campus in Piscataway. Sorry. On tech sourcing. It was a fundamentals of tech sourcing class. And I spoke to 40 people, a mixture of Rutgers students and professionals, about a day in the life and kind of the fundamentals of being in technology sourcing. It was fun for me, and I got a lot of good feedback. So hopefully we'll do it again.
Yes. So if people didn't see you post about that on LinkedIn, I'll share a link to that in the comments for this show because I love that, and I love that you're involving the students at Rutgers and that Johnson & Johnson so generously sponsored that event. So let's get into it. I just had to shout you out for that because I love the support for ISM and what you're doing, and we'll get into Rutgers a little bit later in the interview. I like to start all of these with kind of a fun exercise, um, and I did not prep him for this. He doesn't know, but David, I would love for you to describe yourself in just a few words, like 3 words, three
Oh,
descriptors.
um, I would say I'm an intelligent, silly goose.
I can confirm. Yes.
I
Yes.
do
Okay.
enjoy bringing levity and fun and smiles to every interaction that I have. And I think that pretty much describes me. Yeah.
I think from the history that I've learned about your life, I can see that levity, that vein of humor and fun. I can definitely see that. So let's begin to share that as we start with some of your early life. Um, you grew up in the Mariners Harbor Project in Staten Island, which I'm sure was not the easiest place to grow up. And you have this bright energy about you. And so I want to get into a little bit about how you became this bright person who is positive and motivated and fun to be around. And so tell me a little bit about like maybe some of those most formative experiences from your childhood that you think shaped who you are.
So, I mean, my childhood is really a study in like duology, right? Because there is this aspect of growing up in an impoverished neighborhood. The Mariners Harbor projects were in the 80s specifically. I'm dating myself in case you can't see the gray hairs. Um, it wasn't the worst neighborhood, but it wasn't the best either. There was the epidemic of crack cocaine, which was beginning to flourish. So it made it a little bit difficult. But at the same time, you're a child and people are actively trying to shield you from it. I had the privilege and the benefit of being in a family that was Jehovah's Witnesses. So we had an extended community, and that'll come up again later on because it shielded me from a lot of things. Um, but at the same time, it gave me the opportunity to remain a child in an environment where you had to grow up pretty fast.
Yeah. And you were raised by your grandmother, correct?
Correct. Yes,
How
I
did,
did, Evan. I said Mariners Harbor Projects.
yeah. And how do you think she's influenced you and your values and your approach to life?
Oh man, my grandmother was um she was the driving heartbeat in my family. She provided a great example of consistent and continuous improvement. She was never the type of person who would rest on their laurels. Like, I'm sure we look at our seniors and we go, they can't right click on a mouse. That was not my mother. She was um, the latest in audio technology. If she can get her hands on it, she wanted to play with it. One of the reasons that I have this love for tech was the fact that she helped me foster it because she wanted to learn and she knew that I also wanted to learn. So my entire family revolved around, like part of my family at least, revolved around music. My uncle David was on Broadway. He was a singer and he loved audiovisual technology. So he had more money than us. So we got to see it and play with it at his house. And then my mother would figure out ways to try and get it. So that's kind of the drive for a lot of things that what I would end up doing, right? I have the performance there, which we'll get to later. I have the tech, and then I have the continuous improvement. My mother always wanted to learn. When she was in her 70s, she would take courses online that I would send to her to learn how to use Gmail or PowerPoint or something like that, which is obviously not typical, but that's what I come from and that's where I learned from. Always be curious.
She sounds like an incredible woman, and what an amazing foundation to get to build upon, especially for your career. I don't think we talked about that aspect
Not
of
sweet.
your relationship with her, because you know I I assumed, you're a young kid growing up in the digital age and you're really getting into tech like a lot of people our age at our generation during that time. But I love that a lot of it came from her
Yeah.
and her curiosity. I'm sure it was a lot easier to teach her how to use an iPad than it was for me to teach my parents.
She never got to that point. She liked the desktop. She liked the big monitor in front of her. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, real quick, I just want to say hi to the people that are coming in to the show. Dennis, hello, he's from Rochester. Evan from New Jersey, and Danielle from Pennsylvania, and yeah, a few others. Thank you guys for tuning in and welcome. We're about to get into another really interesting topic. Um, David, I want to talk about your very unique mentor that you had at a young age, because this, um, I would say, is unconventional
Yeah,
but
definitely.
incredibly valuable. tell us who was your most impactful mentor in this young formative age?
So we talked a little bit about the environment in which I grew up. It's the definition of success in that environment is a little bit different than most people's childhoods. I never saw a lawyer driving a BMW. I never saw a doctor in my neighborhood on a regular basis. I saw a drug dealer. And when you get to be a certain age and your hormones are raging and all the pretty girls are flocking to this one particular person, um, you take notice. However, as I said, I was Jehovah's Witness. I was a good boy. So my mentor and my desire was to be a drug dealer at that age. I in my heart of hearts, that's what I wanted to do. But I wasn't allowed to
Right.
because that wasn't for me. In his own words, you're not. Yeah, this is not for you. I'm sorry, you can't be here. A lot of my friends were. A lot of the people that I surrounded myself with, that I grew up with, moved into that life. And I was able to, at times, associate with them while still remaining separate. And I learned the business mentality of, um, you could say hustle, but it easily translates into business vernacular, right? Uh, Delegation of authority, strategic thinking, um, tactical use of resources, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your various resources. You never really think about that as something that a person leads a type of organization, this type of organization would have. But now that I'm an adult and I got to watch this, I recognize it for what it was: good leadership. And he was a very good leader.
And again, I don't want to say it, but it's typically a very profitable, you know, business
At least back then it was.
model. Yeah. Yeah, and so that's not just because of the product, it's because of the minds and, like you said, the leadership. I wonder, I hope and I wonder if he did something else with his business skills.
He did.
Um,
He did.
okay, good. I mean, it would be it's still a huge win that you learned so much from him and were able to put that into your own career.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to keep talking about your career. We spoke a little bit about your love for tech at an early age. Um, and you got your hands on your first computer at what age?
I think I was 8 when I got my first computer,
8?
8 or 9. Yeah. So my mother, we
Okay.
had a TV in the kitchen, a really small TV that was consistently on either QVC or the Home Shopping Network. And my mother saw a computer, and I mean, she wanted one, but she said it was for me. And she bought me this computer. I think it was the second week I had it that I took it apart, and then put it back together, and it still worked. I was very proud of myself. But that continued to foster my love of tech. And it took me from the AV, oh, this sounds great, into I have to understand computers in a much more holistic way. And that was the driving force behind so many of my decisions in my career. Just the ability to, for lack of a better word, play with the toys.
Yep, I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
And you did have a lot of hands-on experience with tech following that time.
Yeah.
Um, like let's get right into it. You worked in inventory management and logistics right out of high school, right?
Yes. I started my uh, supply chain career as a receiving person at both Pathmark, and I'm again dating myself, a store called Caldor, neither one of them which are in business anymore. But um, I learned inventory control. I learned min-maxing. I learned about purchase orders. I learned about all of these things and dealing with the hub and spoke model from these corporate distribution houses and the companies that I work for, right? I interface with the leadership of the overnight stock crews to gather current inventory data to provide back to the home office. So I know what's coming in the next night. I'm placing the orders for the next day. I know that we're selling so much mustard that we need to buy more mustard, right? Like, and that is essentially the foundation of supply chain, right? Min-maxing your inventory so that there are never shortages of stock, right? I would get into so much trouble if somebody came in and there was no mustard. You need Gouldens for your hot dogs on July 4th. What am I going to do? It's David Johnson's fault.
That's right. And thank you for your service to 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 your area's need for mustard on their hot dogs. Um, so you're learning about inventory management, supply chain, um, and mastering this area at such a young age.
Yeah.
Where did you go from here? Because I think this is like the transition that is the most intriguing, I think, for this audience.
So, truth be told, I left.
Mhm.
My love for tech took me away from inventory management into a computer science program at the College of Staten Island, and then into a tech role at a very small brokerage house in Lower Manhattan, Daytech Securities. It was at Daytech that I really started to flourish as a tech person. You want me to tell the story of how I actually got into procurement right now?
Yeah, yeah, tell it.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was the tech guy. We're a growing, very small brokerage firm. We're growing. We figured out a way to game the small order execution system for NASDAQ and making money hand over fist and building out our trading floor, which was essentially just folding desks and computers very, very rapidly. So as low men on the totem pole, were forced to run cable through drop ceilings for networking drops. And because we were growing so rapidly, we had to do the cable runs during the trading day. I was not very good with the creepsit, which is the tool that you use to push the cable through the ceiling. I was historically bad at it. I always broke the ceiling tiles, and I broke a ceiling tile over our head trader's um, head.
Oof.
It wasn't a full like crushing ceiling tile like you might see in a movie. It was a little bit of dirt, maybe some chunks. But he had really good hair, and he was not happy about the dust in his hair. So he essentially told my boss, Haskell Supnick, if you're paying attention, I love you. I miss you. Um, he told my boss to fire me. And my boss sent me upstairs and sat me in his office. And he was like, find something to do. um, and during this time, like I said, we were growing. We were consistently placing orders. Because I was sitting in his office, I would get the visits from the ladies in AP and accounts payable about invoices. I was looking at a pile of packing lists on his desk from supplies that had been delivered, and they had to be matched. So I did the matching, and then I realized we could do this much easier if we created purchase orders. So I created purchase orders. I went into Excel, I found a template, and I started creating POs that matched the orders that we had placed. And because I was a persona non grata on the trading floor, this is where I was stuck. So I spoke with Haskell and I said, what's the plan for the next 6 weeks? Right? I know we have a room we could lock. Let me buy 6 weeks worth of computers and stuff. We'll pre-prep them and I'll create a purchase order. We've got the money. It's not like it's a cash flow issue. So let me do this. And I went out and I negotiated. I got us a little bit of better price. And I created POs for these orders. When they all came in, I did the receiving. I pulled all the packing lists, cross-matched it, and I handed this packet of POs and packing lists to the AP person. And she was flabbergasted. Where did this come from? And a couple of days later, the controller, a guy named Mike McCarty, McCarthy came into Haskell's office in a huff, and he's like, "What is this?" And he's waving the packing list and the invoice and everything from my, "What is this? Who did this?" And I said, "I did it. I thought I was going to be fired because of the hair thing." And he's like, "This is your job now. I'm going to get you in office, and this is what you're going to do from now on for everything. I don't care what it is. This is what you do. Do it right, and don't worry about it. Here's a raise." And that is how I got started in procurement.
Let me rephrase that. That is how David created his own career
That is how I created my own career. How
in
I got
procurement.
connected to ISM is actively related to this. ISM New York used to have a How to Be a Better Buyer seminar, and I found it and I asked to go. And I met one of my next mentors, a gentleman by the name of Abate Okasa, who was teaching the class. And we went and had lunch and we became quick friends. And that is my first introduction to ISM through the New York chapter.
I love that. I love that little bit of history. And it seems like ISM has, um, I don't want to say influenced your career, but maybe helped enrich it, support you during that time.
100%. Always.
Awesome. Um, so before we talk about like your time after this trading firm, let's talk about some of the days where you would come into your job, maybe with a black eye
Oh,
or
come on.
potentially, something going on from your weekend activities. Tell us a little bit about what else was going on in your life during this
uh,
time.
it was actually a little bit later, but I reconnected with someone that I was close friends with when I was a kid, and he's on the heavier side, and we would go to the gym together. And at our gym, downstairs in the basement, was a professional wrestling school where they taught WWE style professional wrestling. When I was a kid, wrestling was my thing in the 80s and 90s, early 90s.
Oh,
Hulk
yeah.
Hogan, like before The Rock, all of these guys that were
Yeah.
huge, huge, I wouldn't say influences on my life, but they were cool to me as a kid and to my best friend at the time. Um, and when we reconnected, he was very, very heavy. He was over 500 pounds. So I was scared that I was going to lose this person that I just reconnected with. And we started going to the gym. We went on a Wednesday night and we heard all this noise downstairs. And we went downstairs, and sure enough, there's a class teaching professional wrestling. And I knew the guy teaching the class. I went to high school with him. So he brought us into the ring and he taught us a few things, and we were hooked. And for the next 10 to 12 years, I was either training to be a wrestler, spending my weekends traveling up and down the East Coast wrestling, um, or going into work on a Monday with a sore back, a sore ankle, a black eye, um, and a story to tell most of the time. Yeah.
What was your signature move?
So my wrestling name was the Chocolate Boy Wonder. I don't think even Kathy knows that. And my signature wrestling move was called the Hershey Highway. It was a full Nelson sit out power bomb kind of thing. So I grabbed you behind the head under your arms, and I would lift you up, and we'd both drop down onto our butts.
Oh, yeah, so maximum damage.
Maximum damage. Yes. Oh man, this is the first time I've ever said that on LinkedIn.
Well, you heard it first, ISM New Jersey audience. We have our very own wrestling celebrity, first time on our podcast, and we are honored. We are so honored.
To be clear, that story is very valuable during negotiations. In case you want to just be a little bit intimidating to your supplier. Oh yeah, I used to be a professional wrestler.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Yeah. What else? So, what other tricks do you have up your sleeve for negotiations?
Oh man, I don't want to say know your enemy, but knowing your enemy is very important. Um, Understanding their motivation And I'm very open and honest. I say to my guys all the time, do you want me to help you buy a boat, or do you want me to fight you on every single dime? That's the dichotomy that we have here. Um, Understanding their fiscal year ends is huge, right? Because you'll get better deals towards the end of their fiscal year, towards the end of their quarter. They need to make numbers, and their leadership will actively help them sign deals. Um, and the last thing that I would say, know their leadership. You should know all the way up the chain. You should know your sales rep. You should know his direct manager, his regional VP, up to as far as you can get. Um, I've had interactions with the number 3 guy at Salesforce. Like, I get as high as you can. It's always helpful.
And I don't presume many of these sales reps and people that you're dealing with on the sales side um, are anticipating that you are such an extrovert and such a people person. Um, I mean, we touched on this a little bit earlier in the top of the conversation, but um, do you think being a Jehovah's Witness as a child and, you know, door knocking helped you
Yeah.
just kind of break down that barrier of social
Yeah.
interactions and engagement?
Like, nobody gets rejected more than Jehovah's Witnesses, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, nobody gets doors slammed on their faces more than that. But what it taught me is that every person is just a person. There's no intimidation, whether I'm talking to a CEO or a school kid. Like, there's no difference. You are a person to me. You've got blood in your veins, and I can talk to you, and I know that I can bring value into your life, even if it's just a smile. I'm bringing something there. So being a Jehovah's Witness absolutely destroyed any fear of public speaking that I might have had, and that and wrestling in front of 1,000 people, like, that does it.
Yeah, and it seems like performance is like a core part of what makes you happy,
Yeah.
and we haven't even gotten into the other bits of performance that you've done, kind of as passion projects in your life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was a secret theater kid for a long time. In high school, I was always in plays. Junior high school, I was the Artful Dodger and Oliver Twist. I was a bunch of stuff. But for me, another aspect of negotiation is conflict resolution. So I learned when I was in high school that there was an improv group based out of Maimonides Hospital that did improv sketches around conflict resolution. They were called Faces. Um, Faces invited me in. I auditioned, and I spent the better part of 3 years performing in high schools all over New York City and New York State. Um, I was a New York Times Kid of the Week. I was in a commercial for Mayor Giuliani's Choose to Diffuse program. And like, this love of performing, this ability to think on my feet, changing things on the fly and reacting to another person's stimulus, right? If somebody says yes, this is the thing, you can't follow up then with no, it's not a thing. um Helps me in my every day. It helps me every day to be able to you know, take the stimulus that I'm given from a supplier conversation and then pivot, or help them to come across to my way of thinking without being as negative as I could be. No, I don't want this becomes yes and or yes, but what if we did it this way?
I I love that you just offered that up. I think a lot of people could use that little bit of advice, um, not just professionally, personally. I think having that personal negotiation skill, it's essentially emotional intelligence, and
Yeah. Yeah. I have a
I think
nine-year-old son. I put that into use on a
that
regular basis.
I bet. And does he share your love for performance as well?
He does. He does. He loves to perform. He was in a Broadway bound program, and he was Lord Farquaad in Shrek the Musical. It was one of the highlights of my life and probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Does he also have the silly goose
Yes.
DNA?
Yes. And unfortunately, he's a negotiator as well, which is bad for
Oh,
me. But good for him. We went to a New York, we went to a Knicks game. I love basketball. Basketball is my thing. I used to have great relationships at Madison Square Garden. So I could get down onto the floor. And I don't have those relationships anymore. Those people have moved on. So I took him to his first basketball game when he was maybe 4 years old. And I decided that I wanted to get him onto the floor to get Julius Randle's, his favorite basketball player at the time, his autograph. So we're up on the fourth floor and we're talking to security and I'm schmoozing and I'm trying to talk them down and they're going from person to person to person to person. And he was there the entire time and he learned because he used that exact same technique on me to get what he wanted later on, in that very same day. It was disturbing, but also very proud papa moment.
yeah, proud moment. And I'm sure as he's growing up, he is helping you refine your own negotiation skills because he's not going to let you fall behind.
Yeah, no, he's definitely tough. He's definitely tough.
Okay, so I want to switch gears
Okay.
and talk a little bit more about your most recent like stage of your career in procurement and tech sourcing. So we go from the trading firm to what kinds of companies and roles?
I've been everywhere. I think it's always the tech that makes me go someplace else, right? Tech is the same in every industry, but it's also a little bit different in every industry, right? The way that it's used. And to fully understand the technology, you have to understand how a company is using it. Salesforce creates a great customer relationship management platform, but it's different in a bank setting than it is in a pharmacy setting, in a pharma company setting. It's different in a media setting than it is in those banking and pharma. The regulations change, the customer profiles change. That's all very interesting stuff that you have to learn in order to effectively source it, in order to build good contracts, good deals, and to create value for an organization. Um, and that's the thing that I've loved over the years, right? Pharma had its points of fun. Banking had its points of fun and frustration. Um, Higher ed was great. I loved work. I worked for Columbia University. It was fantastic working for them. But living in a media world now, I see the similarities and the huge differences. Working for a big conglomerate that's got multiple media companies globally and some other stuff that is not necessarily media. So like that brings its own unique challenges, and fun points to the role. Figuring out how to optimize a contract for 9 different companies is amazing.
So with News Corp, what's like your biggest lesson learned this year?
Stay close to your stakeholders. Your stakeholders make or break any deal that you have, and their frustration is that they need to keep the lights on, but they also need to be forward thinking, and they can't do that all the time. So it's your job to present them the options that will currently solve their problem, but continuously improve moving forward so that 3 years from now, they're not in the same position they're in today. That's been my biggest lesson learned. And you usually have way more stakeholders than you think, especially in
Yeah,
tech.
yeah, for sure. What's the hardest part about your job doing tech sourcing?
Herding cats. No, I mean, there are a wide variety of challenges. Technology changes so fast. So you build a 3-year contract, and in year 1.5, your technology is outdated and you're already looking for what's going to replace it. It's huge. 2 years ago, nobody knew anything about ChatGPT. Now
Yeah.
every product has an LLM associated with it. Everybody's got an AI infused add-on that they want to charge you for. How does that affect you as an organization? How does it affect your customer data? How does that affect your cybersecurity posture? How does that
Mm.
affect your technology stack? How does it interact with all of the other pieces of software that it now has to interact with? We have to figure that out. It's not just your job, but it's kind of your job, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all interconnected. And I won't talk about my job, but the company I work for called Umnitsa helps to solve a lot of these problems that you just spoke about. That we'll save that for another day.
Okay.
Um, but what I was going to ask you, so what do you do in the situations where your tech is outdated at 1.5 years of a 3-year contract? Do you stop doing 3-year contracts, or how do you get around that?
No, we're already in the middle of the contract.
Yeah.
That's where I get to do the fun stuff because I go to my stakeholder and I say, listen, buddy, check it out. I know that you don't have time to think about what's next. What's going to happen in a year and a half is you're going to come to me and you're going to say, David, I have to renew this contract because you never got to look at what's next. Help me understand what this product is, what it does, and how we use it. And what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to find you the next version. I'm going to go out to the market and I'm going to set up some demos with alternate suppliers. And then I'm going to set up some demos with niche suppliers that might not be ready now, but in 2 years, they'll have more funding. And it won't be just a guy in a garage in San Francisco. It'll be a fully formed organization that you can then really engage with. Or, or maybe they're still not ready and we subcontract to another supplier and
Mm.
have them help them grow them. Or, if it's in a perfect world, maybe we buy some equity and we get some cheap software 2 years down the line and help them to grow and build a more connected relationship. That's the way that I think, and that's the way that I feel like I can help my stakeholders to be forward thinking.
It sounds like you go much more far and above like the call of duty from what, at least my experience with people on the side of IT sourcing or tech sourcing. And that's a great thing, a great additional service that you offer your own, quote unquote customers within your company.
Nah,
No,
I like
it
to play
is.
with the toys
But do you ever get pushback, like
all the time,
when they say, "Well, no, I already know what I want"?
all the time. I get a lot of pushback because I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I'm not an expert on, identity governance administration, but I am an excellent researcher, right? And,
And negotiator.
well, yeah, sometimes, but that's the value prop, and most of the time, it's them defining what they want me to find. Because I don't know if you've ever talked to your tech guys, but if you get a tech guy talking about something he loves or something that
Mhm.
he's stuck with, he'll yap your ear off. What are your pain points? Blah, 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 blah. And then you know what you're looking for. And you bring them that thing. This solves 85% of your problems, but they're not quite ready yet. In 2 years, they might be ready. So what do you want to do? It's still their decision, and it's them giving you your marching orders. It was your suggestion, but they helped you get there. And that's strategic. When you talk about normal sourcing and direct sourcing, if you're buying coffee beans, you already know that there's another farmer in Kenya that you can buy coffee beans from. You may have a tertiary, a third supplier that you're working with. Tech is one of the few places where you're stuck and pigeonholed with that
Mm.
vendor. Vendor lock-in is a real challenge. And it takes us time to detangle all of those relationships because your CRM system is tied into your ERP and 10 other systems that you use. So you have to be sure that everything is covered. Other sourcing people do it. Why can't we? I want to play with the
Yeah.
toys. I just don't get to go to Kenya and sample the coffee.
Not I mean, not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe that could it sounds like you're winning people over, left and right. That might be the next step is getting in there and getting to use it and
Yeah.
understanding it on the next level for the next renewal.
Oh, I'm involved in, like, invite me to the demo. I want to see. I want to play with the toys. Give me a demo account. I want to see what's in the sandbox. Let me have some time to see if I can break it. All the time.
Oh my gosh. No, you no, that I love that. That's side note again, that's what we look for for our customers is somebody who wants to get in there and get their hands dirty. Um, oh my gosh, I had the next question. I had another follow-up because I'm really so interested in this process. Did you have like a mentor that kind of taught you this path of strategic sourcing and like this partnership with your stakeholders, or did you just kind of like figure that out on the way?
Honestly, I had there have been many people in my life and in my career who've guided me in this direction, but none that I would say gave me this particular weird out outlook and viewpoint on how I should be doing strategic sourcing. Um, Many times it's experience. You're forced into a situation where you have to renew, or a relationship has soured and you're stuck and you're just like, oh, I'm so mad. Well, what if 18 months ago I had made this effort to change? Well, they don't have the time to do that. They already said, I don't want to do an RFP. It's too much work. Well, I could do it. Like, I can understand the tech. I know what it's supposed to do. I know what our use cases are. Why don't I just present to them this information and then schedule some meetings with them? And it can work. And
That
then
is
once I started
so
doing that,
valuable.
I started doing that a while ago. The next thing you know, my CTO was like, David, why aren't you coming to my leadership team meetings? Because I wasn't invited. You're on the leadership team. You missed the last meeting. I am? Oh, okay. I'll be at the next one. Like, that's
Yeah.
and that's what I want now. Now I want to be there when ideas are being thrown around. I want to know what they're trying to do. I want to know how they feel about this AI thing, or an article that I read on the MIT tech forum or something like that. Like, my Sri was my old CTO. He said to me, I think of you as a tech guy who happens to do procurement. So when you come to these meetings, speak up. You're not a fly on the wall. You're part of the team. And I loved it. And it made me feel so empowered. It took away a lot of my imposter syndrome. And I have lived that way ever since. I can talk tech with any guy in my organization. And if I don't know, I will know the next time we talk. That's been my thing ever since. I don't mind being ignorant one time, but I'm not going to be ignorant twice. I got that from my mama.
Bringing it right back around.
Yeah.
Major, major value. Um, I'm curious to know, like, what's on the tech side, and then we'll get back to procurement real quick. Um, what's some of the coolest tech that you've seen recently that you're really excited about?
Um, so I'm obviously very excited about what is happening in the world of artificial intelligence. And but for me, the most interesting and the coolest thing are the things that are happening in advertising and marketing tech. How much information and how much these companies can personalize your advertising experience is absolutely insane.
Isn't it?
Um, we all talk about, I had a thought and then it came up, an advertisement for it came up on my Facebook feed. But understanding what goes on behind the scenes to get that thought into a Facebook advertisement is absolutely crazy. And when you're working for an organization that has multiple websites, multiple imprints, and just learning the interconnected nature of how we utilize your customer profile to then entice you to get more of our other properties, absolutely crazy. And it's so cool and so interesting.
Yeah. And I'm a marketer and I don't even understand that depth. B2B SaaS is a little different than like, direct to consumer type of marketing where you see Instagram ads and you're like, "Oh, I've been wanting this," right? I just thought about that a second ago. How'd they know? Um, it's all just incredibly engineered. Um,
Like I saw my own like there's a profile for me, right? I buy books. I do not have a Wall Street Journal account. I don't have a New York Post account, but they know how to sell me a Wall Street Journal or a Post account. Like 100%. I was shown exactly what they would do. And I was like, yeah, yeah, you probably get me. You definitely get me. Like, it's amazing. And now I'm worried. Like, now every time I see an ad, I'm like, how much
mm.
information do you have about me, sir?
Sometimes like I said, as a marketer, I kind of know, at least behind, ad dollars, what that means for a marketing team and budget. And sometimes I will intentionally click on an ad because I'm mad at it. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna pay for this click. You're paying for this one. I don't want what you're selling, but you're paying for that engagement. That's just
That's
me.
right.
Okay. We've got like 15 minutes left. I still have a couple things I wanted to
Okay.
ask you, especially about Rutgers Business School. So tell us a little bit about it. Is it an MBA course that you're doing? Tell us more about that.
Yes. So Rutgers has an online mini MBA in AI. It focuses on AI, machine learning, the growth of AI, and then it goes into very specific iterations of AI. The module that I teach is AI in the supply chain, and it talks about things like spend analytics, AI and logistics for route optimization, and some of the cool AI driven robotics things like self driving cars and the cool spider monkey robots that Amazon and some of the tech companies have that climb the racks and take down your packages before putting it um, on a thing to the actual human beings who put it in the truck. So
That's wild.
um, it's a burgeoning and really cool area to get to learn and to get to know.
So, the students that are enrolled in this program, are they young? Are they all ages?
It's all ages. It's completely online, so it's a lot of professionals who are looking to further their career with an executive MBA. Um, but it's got widespread applicability. Like if you're looking for an MBA, it's very thorough. Um, if you're interested in AI in any way, shape, or form, it's a great class for you to check out.
And what else do you do with the students? So you've got your online course. You did the event last week with Johnson and Johnson. Anything
Um,
else that you guys have going on?
Rutgers has a number of supply chain related clubs, kind of like a debate club or a
Fun.
chess club. And every year, at least once a year, there's some level of interaction between us and ISM New Jersey. I'm on the board of ISM New Jersey, and the students. Just a couple of weeks ago, we did a career day type panel with the students in the Rutgers University Supply Chain Association. Um, in February, I think there's another program, Road to Supply Chain Success. I'll be there. They have an AI council, so they've asked me to speak at the AI council. So I'm going to get to talk to them about toys and AI and kind of. Sorry, I got really excited there for a second. Let me calm down.
It's fine. No,
Um,
I get it.
but I love what I do, and it's allowed me to be successful in ways that I didn't necessarily expect when I was a 14-year-old kid in the projects. So being able to provide that knowledge and that view of an alternate way to be successful is something that I've always been passionate about. So I go back to my high school and I talk to the kids about my travels, and I'm not a baseball player or a drug dealer or anything like that. I was a vice president at a bank. Like, you could be anything. The way your story starts is not the way that your story ends. And that's my passion. That's my little passion project. And that's why anytime anybody at Rutgers asks me to speak, I will go. And that's to any school, really and truly, because people need to understand that it's not a job that you're doing, it's a career. And the way that you walk and the way that you talk the talk is mentorship, whether you know it or not.
I love that. It seems like a perfectly suited place for you to be spreading your knowledge, your wisdom, and nurturing people probably not yet at the same maturity level in their career, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They haven't even started yet. They're just at the beginning, and
Yeah.
they're learning that this is like, it's fun and it's interesting, and there's people that are passionate about it. It's not just a job. It can be a full-on career.
So as you think about the students that are in your program or in your class, that are just now learning about advances in AI and how it applies to supply chain and procurement and tech. Um, how does that differ from when you were starting out? Like, do you wish that like you had something like this when you were
Whoa,
younger?
1000%. When I went to college, there were no supply chain programs. Even though I have a master's degree in global supply chain and logistics, it was not this way. And the technology aspect has always been independent learning. Like, there's no place that I can go to holistically learn about AI. I said before, I'm a good researcher. I actively seek out individuals who are in contact with these AI companies, these startups, and I look for the ones that are interesting too. I developed a relationship at OpenAI, so I learned all about their APIs and how other companies are using them confidentially. Um,
Off the record.
Off the record, yeah. Um, yeah, I did sign the NDA, but I didn't say anything specific. Um, but like, finding out about self-driving trucks that they're using in Texas, I met a guy who does procurement for one of these companies at a procurement event, and I was like, "Listen, I need to talk to an engineer. I need to talk to somebody who can tell me about the software that drives this." I wanted to understand their neural network, and he was like, "Seriously? That is not what I thought was going to come out of your mouth, Mr. Johnson. But okay, I can make it happen." And I spent time with them, and passion, and they talk about their stuff like it's their children, and I loved it, and I learned so much, and that then goes into my class. That goes into the conversations that I have with the students. That goes into the conversations I have with my bosses and my legal team and finance, and especially the tech guys, because I can tell them that is not accurate as of a month ago, because here, and then show them. And that gives you
Yeah.
credibility, and that helps you build rapport, because you're not just the procurement person that's going to slow everything down. You're a tech guy that understands their tech, that's asking them the right questions to get to the right answer. And now I'm first. "Hey, David, what do you think about this?" "All right, I'm going to bring that to my boss. Can you help me present it? Can you help me build the presentation that will build the use case?" Okay. And that's where you want to be. The earlier you can intervene, the better the results, right? Anybody who lives in procurement can tell you that. You can build a better contract and a better deal when you're up front, when you're in the front, as opposed to the last guy on the line.
So my next question was going to be, what's your biggest piece of advice for somebody who sees themselves in leadership, in procurement, but aren't there yet? Um, but I feel like you just explained that answer.
Yeah. And to add to that, lead. You don't have to wait for someone. In fact, it's even better if you're the one presenting these opportunities, right? Your leadership analyzes your spend and looks for opportunities. If you're bringing them opportunities, you're a leader. If you're bringing them multiple opportunities, oh, this is a smart cookie. We need to figure out how to better utilize the resource that we have. If you want to be a leader, lead. And it's easy for us because nobody thinks about the stuff that we do until it's right before the contract is ending.
So having some of that forward thought and preparing and thinking through, maybe 5 or 6 steps so that you can be the most useful
Yeah.
resource for each of your company stakeholders.
Yeah. People pay McKinsey a whole lot of money and PwC and Deloitte a whole lot of money to do the exact same thing that you can do with a couple hours of research. They just trust it more because it comes from the big four or Gartner.
I mm, yep, I believe it. Um, yeah, and not everybody is as naturally natural leader. Like I think that you have shown from a very early age, from the time that you're going door to door to the time where you created your own career in procurement out of nowhere. um, so for those of us that maybe feel a little less inclined, what's something that they could do to help them maybe ease some of the anxiety of stepping out or taking a risk?
It's always going to be anxiety inducing and fear inducing in order to when you want to put yourself out there, because that fear of failure is real. But I will say, Will Smith said, all of the greatest experiences and all the greatest joy in your life was right on the other side of fear. Fear isn't real. Fear is your mind telling you that you can't accomplish something. Um, Once you learn to rein that in, it's okay to try, right? You're gonna fail, right? And we'll go to a
Yeah.
baseball analogy. Ted Williams is the greatest hitter in baseball history, right? He hit 400. That means he failed 6 out of 10 times, and he's the greatest of all time. Um, don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I have a long history of great deals that didn't turn out so great, but I also have a bunch of really good deals that my companies are still reaping the rewards for. If you're going to be a leader, if you want to be a leader, you have to go out and lead, and you can't be afraid to fail.
I think this is like the most perfect message to end on. And thank you so much, David, for so openly sharing your life and your
Thank you for having me.
lessons. Yeah, and for sharing the things that maybe you weren't expecting to share on LinkedIn today. Um, it's so much fun to get to know the voices of supply chain and the people behind these roles and these titles that we see on LinkedIn. So on that note, I want to encourage everybody listening, if you are not following David Johnson, get on there, find him, follow him, message him. Maybe you guys can connect over ISM things or
Yeah. Feel
tech.
free.
It sounds like you love talking tech. So, and it looks like a couple people may have mentioned some mutual interest in the comments. So
Yeah.
get connected with David and look for more updates coming out about what you're doing with Rutgers and ISM and all of the next steps for you. I'm sure you've got more things on the horizon.
Definitely. And just be warned, if you do follow me, there will be some silly gooseness in my posts. I like to inject humor, pop culture references into procurement related things. It's weird, uh, but people seem to enjoy it, so I'm going to keep doing it. And I like writing it.
It's
So
Love that. And it's not weird. We need to liven things up sometimes with procurement. And uh, yeah, so everybody follow David. Thank you for watching. Thanks for joining us. I hope that you took some joy out of today and feel like you can celebrate and feel a little bit more at ease after hearing our conversation. And you know, have the best holiday season possible. We'll be back around next month on Voice of Supply Chain. We have Michael Shields coming up. He is head of procurement at Anthropic, a procurement company. So I'm really looking forward to that and seeing you all right back here in the same place. Until then, have a wonderful week, a great holiday season, and happy holidays to you and yours.
Thank you very much.